The classroom you grew up in. One teacher, one grade, everyone the same age. It shows up in America around 1848. Before that, a single teacher taught 6-year-olds and 16-year-olds in the same room, and a child moved up when they were ready, not when a calendar said so. So what happened in 1848? The answer is one of the stranger facts about your own life. The way you were sorted for 12 years was never really about how you learn. It was about something far more boring than that. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Start with how odd the system actually is. Right now, in a school somewhere, 25 children are sitting in a room together. They share one thing, not a skill, not a reading level, not an interest. A birth year. We treat that as obvious, the natural way to run a school. But for almost all of human history, nobody did it this way. In colonial America, the one-room schoolhouse held every child in the district at once, ages 6 to 16 in the same space, each working at their own pace. The medieval cathedral schools before them were stranger still. Students from 8 years old up into their early 20s learning side by side. Mixed ages weren't a problem anyone was trying to fix. They were just what school was.
And here's the part that quietly demolishes the idea that age is the natural way. When reformers in the early 1800s went looking for a way to teach the masses, the popular answer wasn't age at all. It was a method called the monitorial system, built by an Englishman named Joseph Lancaster. One teacher could run a room of hundreds by grouping children not by how old they were, but by how far along they were. The advanced students tutored the beginners. You advanced by proficiency. So the world already had a working model for mass education, and it sorted by skill. Age grading didn't beat it because it taught better. It beat it because of a building. In 1848, in Boston, a school opened called the Quincy Grammar School. Its founder was a Dartmouth graduate named John Philbrick. The Quincy School's breakthrough wasn't a lesson plan. It was a floor plan. 12 identical rooms, one teacher in each, and each room held a single grade. One age, 1 year of children, one door that shut behind them. For the first time, a school was laid out like a grid. Historians later nicknamed it the Egg Crate School, and that grid became the template for nearly every school building you have ever walked into. Philbrick hadn't uncovered a truth about children. He'd solved a problem of architecture, how to split a flood of students into units a single adult could manage. His fellow reformer Henry Barnard was, at the same time, writing an entire book on school buildings, treating the room itself as the thing to get right. But Philbrick didn't invent that grid. He'd imported it.
To find where the idea actually came from, you have to leave Boston entirely. In 1843, a man named Horace Mann, secretary of the Massachusetts Board of Education, had toured Prussia. Prussia had been sorting children into age-based classes since the early 1800s, part of a state school system whose roots ran all the way back to a royal decree issued by Frederick the Great in 1763. To the rest of the world, Prussia was the model, the system everyone was studying. Mann came home and wrote a glowing report about what he'd seen. He didn't bring back a curriculum or a theory of the mind. He brought back an organizational chart, a way of arranging bodies in rooms. Now, here's where the story stops being about one building and becomes about an entire country running out of space. The mid-1800s were an avalanche of children. Cities swelling with immigration. New compulsory attendance laws. Massachusetts passed the first in 1852 that made school mandatory. Overnight, a district had to educate not the handful of kids who happened to show up, but every child in it, by law. And those laws only spread. By the turn of the century, they were universal across the North and the West. The scale is hard to picture now. In 1870, around 60% of young Americans were enrolled in some kind of school. By the century's end, so many children wanted in that districts, in one historian's words, often had nowhere to put them. You cannot teach 700 children in one room.
You have to divide them, and you need a rule for dividing them that's cheap, fast, and impossible to argue with. Skill takes testing and judgment and arguments with parents. Age takes a birthday. Everyone has a birth year. It needs no assessment, no debate, no appeal. Age wasn't chosen because it was the best way to group children. It was chosen because it was the easiest way to count them. That's what crossed the Atlantic. Not an idea about learning, a system of order.
The Stanford historian David Tyack spent a career on how this happened. He called what emerged the one best system, the way American schools, drowning in numbers, reached for standardization the way any overwhelmed institution reaches for a template. Tyack traced how fast it took hold. By 1860, most large American cities had already carved their pupils into grades. By 1870, age grading had reached almost everywhere that had enough students to classify. And that phrase is the whole tell: enough students to classify. And once schools had started counting, they couldn't stop. In 1906, the Carnegie Foundation needed a way to measure a high school education, a single unit that colleges could count and compare. So they defined learning in terms of time, hours in a seat, across weeks, across a year. They called it the Carnegie unit, not what you had mastered, how long you had sat there. That accounting convention still sits on your transcript today. So put the pieces together, because the shape they make is the real answer.
Most people assume the age-graded classroom was designed, on purpose, by someone, to manufacture obedient factory workers. You've almost certainly heard that story. The school as an assembly line, stamping out docile little parts for the industrial economy. But the historian Audrey Waters has spent years tracing exactly that story, and her finding is blunt. The factory model of education is largely an invention, a phrase pasted on backwards, decades later, onto a system nobody built with factories in mind. Remember Lancaster, the system that sorted by skill? It existed at the very same moment. If the real goal had been mass-produced obedience, that model was sitting right there, and it lost. Not to a conspiracy, to a floor plan that was cheaper to run. The truth is duller, and somehow stranger. Nobody built this to make you obey. They built it to make you countable.
That's the click. That's the whole thing. Who decided children should be sorted by birth year? Nobody did. And everybody did. A floor plan in Boston. A report carried home from Prussia. A city with too many children and a law that wouldn't bend. An accountant's definition of an hour. Every one of them solving a logistics problem. Not one of them stopping to ask whether one 9-year-old and another 9-year-old actually have anything in common besides the number. You spent 12 years inside an answer to a question about crowd control. And nobody ever mentioned it was optional.